Hello, and welcome to our 5th annual Finding Hope Inspiring Healing Luncheon. And for those of you who may not know, I am Janice Palm, and I have the good fortune of being the Executive Director of Roanoke Park Counseling. I have to say, here we are virtually, and I do miss being together in person for our luncheons, just the warmth and the connection and energy. But, you know, this is an opportunity because I'm so aware that folks who have been supporting us, part of our Roanoke Park Counseling community, are able to attend our luncheon virtually. And so we're able to include people who may not ever be able to come to our luncheon in person. And that's really exciting because you are going to get to see firsthand what your support does for survivors and the healing that takes place because of you. And you know, boy, in the midst of this, I think, historically difficult year, it seems more important than ever that we are sharing this time together and joining together in something that's so positive, bringing healing and hope. We're making the world a better place, and you're making the world a better place. So thank you so much for joining us today, and I do believe that by the end of this hour today, you will be inspired. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our wonderful board member, Paige Hanley. Paige is a true Seattle native, born and raised and lived here her whole life. She's currently a director at a local tech company, PayScale, and we are just so grateful to have Paige as a board member. So welcome, Paige.
Thank you, Janice. We want to share a little bit about our history at Roanoke Park so that you can understand where we've come from and what we do. Roanoke Park Counseling, at the time Shepherd's Counseling Services, we began as a grassroots effort 33 years ago to fill a need in the community that was not being met. At that time, as you can imagine, there was very little awareness of the specific needs that adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse required. Our founder was a woman named Sister Vera Gallagher, And she was truly a trailblazer. She recognized a need for specialized therapy to provide to survivors of abuse. And ever since then to this day, we have upheld our founding commitment to provide affordable services to ease the suffering of survivors for as long as they need. There is no time limit on healing. The types of services we provide include, for survivors, we have individual as well as group therapy, but also to partners of survivors. So, abuse doesn't happen to just the person who is impacted. It really hits their entire, their family and their network. We are the only agency in the Puget Sound area that provides groups to survivors and their partners. I'm going to say that a second time because I think it's really important to say. We are the only agency in the Puget Sound area that provides groups for survivors and their partners. Because we are a nonprofit organization and because we do not receive government funding, I know, I was surprised too. I did not know that beforehand. I thought there was some sort of program, but turns out no. Our funding solely comes from individual donations and private grants. We truly rely on the generosity of the community to be able to serve survivors of every financial need. And that's important because it turns out sexual abuse does not only happen to those that can afford therapy. So we do a number of things. We do bill private insurance. We are in network for most major carriers, but that's not enough, right? We have to go farther. So we also have a sliding fee scale. So if you can't afford the full rate, we have an opportunity to provide our services at a sliding fee. We go further. If you still can't afford even our lowest rate, we do provide a scholarship, which is funded by donors like you for those that can't afford even that lowest rate. A little about our clients. About 60% of our clients identify as female, about 40% identify as male. And looking across our last year, of the nearly 150 clients that we've served, almost 1/3 of them required financial support. And that is why donations from you is so important and why we're so grateful to our community that we're not just community-based, we are community-funded. So I'm going to turn it over to Natasha, and we will keep this program going.
I gotta have my glasses these days, bear with me. I am so honored to welcome you to the annual luncheon for Roanoke Park Counseling. As long as I get an invitation, I will be here every year because this group means so much. They truly heal, and through that healing, they are able to change lives forever. And of course, during a time of necessary social distance, we are so happy to connect with you here. I like to say, during times of COVID, people struggling with issues, it's so important to lean in and lean on. Lean in for support and lean on one another. And that truly is what Roanoke Park Counseling encompasses. Okay, we want to take a minute to thank our generous sponsors, PCVA Law, Molina Healthcare, Lighthouse Coffee, and Theo Chocolate. And we want to extend a special thank you to Beverly Boy Productions for all of this technical expertise that allows us to live stream and bring this luncheon to you today. We also want to acknowledge our team leaders and peer-to-peer fundraisers for kicking off all of the online donations. And because of you, we have already raised over $6,000 towards our campaign goal, which is amazing. Thank you so much for your leadership. Now, I do want to go over just a few housekeeping items while I have your attention. You will have the option to donate via your mobile phone. Yes, it is that simple. Using your phone at any point during this program, all you have to do is text the word GIVE RPC to 44-321. I'm going to say that again. All you have to do is text the word GIVE RPC to 44-321. You're also going to see a link at the bottom of the screen to donate online, and you may also use that chat feature on Vimeo if you want to talk with us during the event, share comments, or ask any questions. Now, we are in for a really special program today, as always, every year. I'm so glad you joined us to join these survivors. It takes a long, courageous journey to make the healing happen. These folks that share their stories are survivors of child sex abuse, and we want to celebrate and support the healing of all survivors. It is my pleasure to share just a bit about our next speaker. She has been a passionate advocate for adult survivors of childhood sex abuse for over 2 decades, bringing her voice to our community through a monthly blog, media interviews, and through ongoing professional trainings. She is a dedicated therapist, and she is the executive director here at Roanoke Park Counseling. Again, my honor to welcome Janice back up. Oh, Janice, wait, I gotta clean. Hold on.
Yes, there are these things we are doing now that we didn't do a year ago and maybe won't have to do next year, I'm not sure. I want to take just a few minutes to share with you something that I actually believe is critically important for us all to be aware of in this day and this moment. And that is, I'm here to let you know that there is clear evidence of the strength and the resilience of the human spirit. That's good news. I truly believe that by the end of this hour, you too will have evidence of this amazing truth. And it is true, for over 20 years, I have borne witness to the suffering of adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse. And, you know, I can tell you that it doesn't get easier as time goes by to hear the stories and to hear the harm that one human can inflict on another. And, you know, I realized early on that for me to be able to hear the stories and support survivors, I was going to need to keep my heart open. And I am suggesting that you do the same today. You will hear stories of individuals who have traveled on a journey that is so courageous and may seem almost impossible. Keep your heart open as you're listening. You know, our mind is a wonderful instrument of logic and reason, and we depend on it a lot. But actually, our mind cannot calculate or make sense of human suffering. But that's what our heart is for. Our heart is designed to actually increase in capacity as we allow ourselves to be touched by another's heartache. And that's my wish for you today. So listen with your heart. When a child is sexually abused, it's really a wound on so many levels. It is physical and sexual, to be sure, but honestly, it is very much a wound of the spirit. By nature, children are trusting of adults, and when that trust is betrayed, a child loses trust in adults, but also in themselves. And then the world becomes a threatening and unstable place. And children typically turn into themselves, and they hide their insecurities and their fears, and they honestly do the very best they can to go on and to convince others, and maybe most importantly themselves, that they're okay. And from then on, life becomes a marathon. It's about outpacing the pain and the fear and the threat that their secret might be exposed. They might find out that actually they're not okay. And so then imagine the strength and the courage that it takes to actually reach out for help, to start on the path of healing, and to dare to hope that beneath the hiding and the coping, there might actually be a life that's worth living. A life that's less fraught with struggle and pain, and a life that can be so much better than it has been. And that's where we come in. We hold open the space for hope. And from that point on, the journey begins, and it is most often a long and painful journey, but a journey that survivors find is tolerable because now they're not alone. And this is the path we know. Honestly, for 30 years, day in and day out, therapists and survivors walk up the steps in this building we're in right now, walk up to the offices to find out that healing is possible. and they find out that there can be a better life. And we get to witness this. We get to witness the stirrings of curiosity and hope and the resilience of the human spirit as it emerges. And this is where you come in. You, along with us, are creating this safe space for survivors to find that they're not alone, that they are more than their suffering, and that there are people who care deeply about their struggle, and there actually is a life worth living. So for those of you listening right now who do know about this journey and this struggle that I'm talking about, I want you to know that even though you may not feel it, you may not know it, you are stronger and more resilient than you know. And there is a path that's waiting for you to open up to find that healing. And, you know, for those of you, honestly, who are lucky enough to have a safe and protected childhood, you are indeed lucky. And thank you so much for being with us today and taking the time to open up your hearts and to consider the suffering of far too many of your fellow human beings. Thank you for your partnership in making this place of healing available for survivors. And now, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you 3 of our therapists who will share their experience of the healing journey.
You know, one of the incredible things about working with survivors is seeing people who show up with the gamut of symptoms, really, because of their experience in childhood. And being able to see the human being and the story, the incredible resilience that it takes and the bravery to even pick up the phone and call Roanoke Park Counseling and say, I want to come and get support. That alone, that step, I'm always moved when people walk into the room the first session and excited to see what journey they're going to take.
It's really inspiring to see people who come to therapy as adults, and some have gone to therapy before but not really dealt with the abuse, and some have never gone to therapy at all. So they come in, I think of it as with their heart in their hands. They don't know what they're going to get. They don't know if they're going to get better. They're going to have to talk about very hard things. And it takes courage to do that. So I'm always really inspired by the courage people bring to their work.
It's just to be able to be a witness to that shedding of layers and see people bloom. You know, I've seen a lot of people just bloom and find that security of that they're more than their trauma. That has no price.
Another sort of umbrella thing that people come in with often is poor self-concept. And that's a really sad and debilitating result of childhood trauma of all kinds. Sexual trauma is what we deal with. And that's slow work. That doesn't get better fast. And it takes really consistent and supportive work with people sometimes to help them start to see their own value. And that's particularly inspiring and gratifying to see that change. It's a real transformation in people.
I live for those moments when somebody accomplishes a goal, a therapeutic goal that they've been looking forward to. People come and they say, I want to feel joyous, or I want to have more vitality, or I want to feel less anxious. And when those things start to happen in their lives, that's not only, of course, a huge thing for them, but as their companion on their journey, it is so incredibly rewarding.
I am so happy to be able to introduce to you our next speaker, Nadia Romero. Besides being a wonderful human being, Nadia is a national correspondent for CNN News Source, based in the other Washington, D.C. Nadia joined CNN from KCPQ TV, Q13 News in Seattle, where she anchored the newscasts and she reported on lead stories. And I first came to know Nadia as a reporter when she was so vigilant in covering stories about childhood sexual abuse, making sure that it got brought out into the news, that people realized the impact and the stories that were happening. And as I'm sure you can imagine, this is an incredibly busy time in the news business, and we are so grateful that Nadia can join us today virtually.
Thank you for that introduction, and I'm so honored to be here with all of you today with an opportunity to speak firsthand about the wonderful work Roanoke Park Counseling does for clients. The theme of today's annual luncheon, Finding Hope, Inspiring Healing, truly is my goal from today forward. I often share how wonderful it's been to work with the Executive Director, Janice Palm, and the other therapists and staff on board. But today is the first time I'm publicly sharing that I, too, received much needed help there. I am a child sex abuse survivor. I am one of the millions of adults who carry the weight of abuse done to us when we were too young to know what was happening, too afraid to tell someone, and too burdened with shame that at times makes it hard to get out of bed. The guilt, shame, embarrassment that comes from the trauma and pain experienced at a young age follows you through your entire life. It molds and shapes the vision you have of yourself, those around you, and your world. I started working with Roanoke Park Counseling back when it was Shepherd's Counseling Services to give a voice to the alleged victims of former Seattle Mayor Ed Murray. But what I found in return was a safe haven to deal with my own troubled past. After sharing that I was abused by a relative, some family members decided they didn't believe me and removed themselves from my life. So you won't hear me talk about my parents or siblings or my childhood too often, as what matters to me most is the life I've created for myself and the family I plan to build in the future. My biggest coping mechanism to get through my trauma was denial, like so many of us. And when that no longer eased the pain, I poured myself into my schoolwork and then my career. And you can use your trauma to fuel your success. I hope by sharing my story, others can find hope and are inspired to heal. We are not our past. We are not the things that happened to us. We are not bound to a life of misery and struggle because our innocence was stolen from us. Despite those challenges, through many years of therapy and with the support of my chosen family, I am winning at life. Never thought I'd say that. You can use your hardships to fuel you to do whatever you want. Go to school, start a business, build a career, be a great parent or spouse. Whatever makes you happy. It isn't fair that our childhoods will be forever marred by the actions of someone else, but you can grab a hold of your present and your future. I do not believe that everything happens for a reason. I do believe that you can rise above almost any obstacle. In my work as a journalist, the Me Too movement slapped me in the face. Every time I cover child sex abuse cases, it stirs inside me many feelings I wish to bury. But it is my duty to tell those stories, to give voice to those who have been silenced, and rip off the Band-Aid covering many families' darkest secrets. The statistics are too great to believe that you or someone you know hasn't been affected by child sex abuse. And that's why we have to talk about it, so we can move forward. I am not here to preach to anyone on how they should deal with their trauma. When I was asked to speak today, I really considered saying no. I was too busy, I have an unpredictable schedule, I wasn't ready, all of the excuses I could think of. Some days are terribly, terribly hard. Many of us have lost family and friends. We've turned to addictions and self-harm. But every day we get up and face the world is one step toward regaining our power. There is hope even on the darkest days. Thank you for allowing me to share my story. And most importantly, thank you to Roanoke Parks Counseling for providing support to survivors for more than 30 years.
I'm a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and I first started working with a therapist in Seattle in 2007 as the memories of my abuse were just starting to surface. And I had lived a very isolated life and felt very afraid of the world and other people around me, given the traumatic early childhood experiences that I had. And what Roanoke Park Counseling did for me then was give me an opportunity to connect with other men in a safe space so I could start stepping out of myself and into relationships with other people. It was really the first time beyond my relationship with my therapist that I had an opportunity to connect with other people who had a shared experience, who could really understand what I had been through and offer me support. And then I also had the opportunity to provide them support as well.
I personally got so much out of being a client when I attended group sessions that, it's not an exaggeration to say that attending as a client was a truly life-changing experience for me, and is so much for the better, such a positive, life-changing experience. I feel lucky that I'm one of the few people, one of the few survivors that actually feels comfortable talking about the abuse and what happened to me and kind of the journey that I've experienced. And so I kind of feel a responsibility to take action and speak for those that feel that they don't have that same voice.
I personally am a survivor of child sexual abuse, and I know how hard it is to live with that and how difficult it can be if you don't get help. It's very hard as an individual to heal yourself without expert counseling. And I was able to get expert counseling and made a huge difference in my life. I really appreciate the values that Roanoke Park Counseling holds. One of the most important is that people can and do heal. Regardless of the trauma they've been through, they have the ability to heal with the right support and the right effort. And that value stands out to me. Some people, at times myself and others feel like it's helpless. But at Roanoke Park Counseling, they provide the support as long as it takes. And they're passionate, and they'll let you know that they'll do everything in their power to help you along your journey and get back to a healthy place we probably couldn't be otherwise. So it just keeps me motivated knowing the passion and the expertise that they bring.
Thank you to those who are here today. Thank you especially to my friends and family. You've shown up for me year after year. For me, it's hard to not even get emotional talking about it, but that support means so much to me, to know that you are here for me in something that is deeply personal, and helping me spread that to others who can experience that same healing. Thank you.
And of course, again, so inspiring to hear all of these stories of healing. And that is only made possible through your donations. So I want to take a minute to again remind you, all you have to do to help Roanoke Park Counseling out is text GIVE RPC to 44-321. Again, GIVE RPC to 44-321. Now it is my great pleasure to introduce you to someone who has really walked the path of healing for many years as a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. She found Roanoke Park Counseling along her journey of healing, and she is here to share with you her incredible journey of finding hope. So please welcome Ksenia Onsky.
Hi. Thank you very much for being here today, and thank you to Roanoke Park Counseling for this opportunity to speak and to be heard and to be seen. It's my honor and my privilege to be standing here and sharing my story, because my story is just one of many. And the horror of my story is that I thought it was unique to me, but it isn't. It's pretty typical. And the typical part of it is, as a child, I didn't remember most of my childhood. As an adult, I sort of had gaps, and I was always wrong. A promiscuous child, which my family told me, and I believed them. I peed myself, I couldn't sleep, I had insomnia, I had cramps in my body. I was a bad girl, I drew penises on paper. I would hide for hours, and I was antisocial or cold. I was being called names. So I just thought that I was wrong. I was bad. I grew up, and it was, part of being normal, I thought. I lived with my mom until I was 11. Then I lived with my dad until I was 15. My family was very disjointed. My parents were divorced. So when I was 17, I ran away from home, and I thought that was normal too. I got pregnant, had my daughter, lived with my then husband. We were both kids, teenagers. I thought that was normal too. We divorced. I married again, came to U.S., had my son, and kind of settled in life. And I thought, okay, I found my happiness. I ran away from my country. I'm from Russia, from Moscow originally. That wasn't so good. And then my body decided, now I'm ready to give you your story. So it kind of coincided all together. My little sister was getting married. I went back to Moscow to see her. I haven't seen my dad and my family in a long time. And for the first time, I spoke back to my dad. He is a very violent man, very abusive verbally. He would hit my sister so hard on her butt that she would fly across the room. And I was the older sister, so when he started talking trash about her and her fiancé right there, which was his thing, for the first time in my life, I spoke back to him. And I was shocked because instead of being a bully, as he always was, he shrunk. And he walked up to me and said, "Why are you so upset? Daddy loves you." He kissed the top of my head. That was a trigger, which I did not understand until I got back to U.S. and I started having panic attacks. I didn't even know what panic attacks were. I thought I was dying. I thought I was very sick. I was even called 911 on the street because I was standing, grasping for air for people, not able to breathe. And in one of those attacks that was particularly severe, my then husband leaned over me, over in bed, and they just hit me like a load of bricks in my face. My father sexually abused me since I was about 3, 4, 5. I couldn't remember the age. It just started coming back one after another after another. All of my illnesses, me peeing the bed and being hospitalized with bloody diarrhea, not speaking, being weird, hiding under the bed, being punished for that, not eating, it all made sense. My nightmares, insomnia, cramps in legs. I mean, I was so sick constantly. I don't even know, honestly, how I made it through my childhood. I shared it with my sister, with my family, because my first thought was, oh my God, what did he do to her? Like a big sister, protective sister. And she got very upset. She said, that's a big accusation. You're just being mean because our dad is old and now he's weak and you want to get back at him for being, despotic and tyrannical. And said, call him, talk to him. I did. I'll never forget this phone conversation in my life. Because My whole life, I thought something was wrong with me and with my body. I would try to go to therapists and figure out what was wrong, and I couldn't. So when I went back to Russia, I was asking my mom, my dad, I'm like, do you guys remember something was wrong? And it was like a wall, like talking to a brick wall. They're like, no, you're happy, you're great. And I was like, I think something might have happened. I don't know what. So I called, and I said, hi, Dad, it's me. He says, yes. And in Russian, it's da. I go, I remembered what happened to me, and I remember who did it. I remember who sexually abused me. He says, yes. And I said, it was you. And he said, yes. And in that moment, everything just dropped in me. I was speechless. And I said, how could you? And he said, have a good life. And he hung up the phone. That was about 10 years ago. I was so sick after that. I was suicidal. I honestly didn't want to live. The only thought that stopped me from killing myself was my kids. I thought, well, that would be a shitty move on me being a mom, you know, because my mom tried hard as much as she could. My dad tried hard. So I didn't. And then I got really angry, and I went public about it. My family ostracized me. They denounced me, and they said that, oh, American therapists put it in your head, speaking about therapy and how people perceive that. If not for therapists, I wouldn't be standing here, because my case was so difficult, and it was so violent, and it was so hard for me to go back into my memories to just for my sanity. Just so you understand, we survivors of sexual abuse, the worst thing is not even what happened to us. The worst is not being listened to or understood or believed, because we don't remember. It is a coherent story. It's stored in our bodies. And we have to remember to make sense of it, to not think that we're crazy, you know. So I tried to speak of it, and then I couldn't. And I brought the evidence of what healed me partially. It's my books. I'm a writer. So these were the things that I held on to, because a therapist told me, draw and write, and maybe that will help you. And that seemed to calm me down. I literally wrote myself out of panic attacks. That's what happened. Still, this was a 10-year journey, and it was not until I found Roanoke Park Counseling that it really helped me, because no matter what I did, and I went through 8 different therapists, it was not until I came here that I understood that there is help that is professional, where somebody knows exactly what you go through as a childhood sexual abuse survivor. In one session with Brooke, who did an orientation for me here, she gave me this understanding that I was not wrong, I was not broken. There was always this image in my head that we're like these stunted trees, you know, like I have a forest of trees and everybody grows really tall, and you're like this stunted thing. And she said, no, you're up here, double. So my therapist, Pura, in the very first session with me, changed my life by helping me get out of abusive business relationship. And there's more stories for me to tell you. I just want to tell you one more thing, which is I couldn't afford therapy when I got here. My insurance didn't cover it. It was only through a donation that you were able to give, and it was only through donors like you, through a grant, that I was able to do it. I still can't afford it because I'm still putting myself financially on my feet, but you gave me back my life, and I want to thank you for that. I started a business, and I pledge that when I make money, I will be a donor as well. So thank you very much, and it was an honor to speak. I'll give it up to you.
My home life was very bizarre in the sense that it was whimsical and beautiful and very creative on the surface. My mother is a fashion designer, and she knit beautiful dresses and created amazing clothes in the Soviet Union when you couldn't buy anything beautiful. My father is a writer, so he would read me poetry or tell these impossibly awesome tall tales on the surface. Underneath that, there was yelling, beating, and then incidents of me being touched how I didn't want to be, and that went further than I could understand what it was. I always knew something was off, I just couldn't remember what it was. And I made myself so sick just from working nonstop, that I didn't have to think of what was happening with my body. And then my sister was getting married, and so I went back to Russia to see her and her fiance. I haven't seen my father in years, and I have changed, living in a different country, which I came here not knowing English. And I created literally a new identity for myself. So when I came back, and he was not very nice to her, calling her names and just in general being his violent self verbally. And it was the first time that I spoke back to my father. I said, "Don't talk like that to my sister." And he was in shock. He came up to me to make peace. He kissed the top of my head and said, why are you talking to me like that? Daddy loves you." I came back and I started having panic attacks. That was a trigger. The final one, when my ex-husband was with me, he's my dear friend, and he helped me through a lot of it. He leaned over me in bed when I had it, and it hit me. I remember it. I was like, oh my God, it was my father who sexually abused me. That's when I knew, and that's when I knew I needed help. And that is what is happening here in Roanoke Park Counseling with amazing therapists. I love Pura so much, my therapist. Like, she's almost like my family that I've never had, and like the figure for wise mother and the wise friend and just the wise advisor, which is seeing that we're not broken.
Here at Roanoke Park, we offer individual therapy for people who are sexually abused in childhood. And what's remarkable here is that there is no rush for that therapy to be over. It gets to take as long as it takes.
One of our core values, which we really rely on, is we believe in the healing capacity of human connection. That healing actually comes through a connection with a human being. And that's so relevant for survivors because they're cut off. When a child is abused, they're cut off from true human connection. They keep to themselves, they doubt themselves. And so when people can come to therapy and open up, have the connection with the therapist, that in and of itself is healing. It's a safe place.
What I found always helped me was to just try to put it into words. So for me, writing helped because the page couldn't tell me to shut up, or it couldn't tell me go do this or do that. It just listened. And that is really what you will find at Roanoke Park Counseling, and specifically with therapists who are trained to help you, is listening. The kind of listening that you have never had from anyone.
Because of the nature of the work we do, we know absolutely that it's hard, that it takes courage. It is probably not work that will be done in just a handful of times, and that we stand fully ready to do the work with people, as hard and as challenging as it may be, until they're done.
If you're thinking about getting help at Roanoke Park Counseling, I would say just pick up the phone and call. There's always this fear of, is this it? Are they gonna help me? Because you've been probably burned before, or maybe you haven't gotten what you wanted. It really takes professional people to give you help where they know exactly what you're dealing with. They know exactly how to respond, and they know exactly how to help. And I have never in my life seen anything like it.
The financial consequences of the pandemic as a country, as a world, I think we're realizing it's affected so many people in so many ways. And that's, of course, affecting the work we do with survivors here. We are seeing a lot of clients that are saying, I can't afford it, and it is really our desire to do what we can and make sure that people can get the help that they need. But this is not going to change anytime soon. So the community certainly can support us by just remembering that we're continuing to do this every single day and working as hard as we can to be there for survivors. And also, of course, whatever financial way is available to be able to support our work right now. So meaningful, so important, and we just appreciate it so much.
I want to shout to everybody, and I always talk to everybody about Roanoke Park Counseling. I want to flood it with people, which on one end is really tragic if you think about how many of us are out there who need help. But on another, this help is so incredible that it will accelerate you through life. So if you've lost these 20, 30 years struggling, you will catch up really fast. And then you realize you didn't lose those years. You know, they become the added 20 years on top of your life experience, what you know, what other people don't know. And another benefit you'll get is maybe then you can turn around and help others. Because once you see how you can be helped where you believed that you couldn't, then you go, wow, I want to help other people.
Thanks, Ksenia, so much for sharing that story. And I say this every year. I have 2 little girls. I know these stories are really hard to listen to sometimes, but it is so important we hear them. And not only we hear these stories, but we believe the survivors, because that is key to healing. And again, Roanoke Park Counseling is just so instrumental in that. And every time I hear a story of resilience like Ksenia had, it just is mind-blowing. I know, Ksenia, that this story is going to have a profound impact on all who hear it. Once again, I want to bring up Paige.
So I actually came to Roanoke Park Counseling as a client almost 10 years ago. So that means that, yes, I too am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse. For me, attending group sessions here, it gave me this chance to transform my life and opened up a whole new world. I am so deeply grateful to this organization and to the therapists here that I've chosen to spend a lot of my time and energy and money supporting Roanoke Park, whether that's through writing, through speaking, donating, fundraising, and for the last 2 years I've had the pleasure of serving on the board. Those are my reasons why I choose, and we're going to share some of the reasons from our friends and supporters as to why they support Roanoke Park.
I've been able to see firsthand the impact that this organization has made on one of my friends' lives. I've seen someone get their life back from their journey with RPC, and I want everyone who needs this opportunity to have this opportunity.
In today's contentious world, where there's a lot of anger and prejudice, it's great to know that there's a place where people can go and feel supported, loved, and continue on their own journey of healing.
The reason that I support Roanoke Park Counseling is because of all the good that they do, especially in an area of need that gets so little attention. The statistics around childhood sexual abuse, I believe, are staggering, and it's amazing how many adults come forward so many years later, and the bravery and the fortitude that it takes to be able to confront something like that. And I can't imagine coming forward with something and having nowhere to go and no one to help you process and no one to help you overcome what you've gone through. And I think that that is just the most important, amazing thing that Roanoke Park Counseling does, is it gives people a place to go, not just to be heard, but also to heal.
I think it's so important to make a contribution to Roanoke Park Counseling because it's the only therapy provider in the Puget Sound region, and really one of the only ones in the country that offers the kind of therapeutic services to survivors in the way that it does.
To know that this organization, that's all they do, and they hire therapists that have experience in trauma and sexual abuse, and they've been doing it for years. And so it's an organization that I firmly believe in, I'm invested in, and I will continue to be as long as I can.
It is such an overwhelming need for survivors of childhood sexual abuse to be able to tell their whole stories and be able to come forth and really participate in their own process of going through that storytelling for themselves. Just extremely exponentially powerful that not only are folks able to open up, but they're able to do so in such a manner of storytelling that's so powerful.
With your continued support, we can continue to do what we do best. Thank you.
I don't know why I volunteered to go after all of those videos played. Those were amazing messages of support. And, you know, here at Roanoke Park, we have not stopped services just because of this pandemic. We have shifted completely to virtual therapy. And we have seen an increase in the need for financial assistance from clients as the effects of the pandemic have impacted survivors and their families. We are also seeing, and I can attest to this firsthand, the impact of a global trauma and how that can be triggering for those who've already experienced trauma as children who experience sex abuse. Your donation today ensures that we can keep serving those who come to us for help, regardless of their financial means, and nobody gets turned away. I'm going to give you two very quick stories. These are my gifts to you, and then I'm going to ask for two things in return. So my first story, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I heard one recently about Vice Admiral James Stockdale. He was a prisoner of war in North Vietnam for 7.5 years in total isolation, and he was isolated along with other prisoners, but they couldn't communicate. What James Stockdale did, I found really interesting, was that he developed this tapping code where he could actually communicate with the other prisoners, and so they were able to, share and exchange messages. And what I thought was interesting is that a lot of experts speculate that that tapping code is actually what kept so many of them alive and helped them survive. So think about that. Without a way to connect to the minds and the hearts of others, isolation wins. And you've heard today how isolation has such a huge impact on survivors. Supporting Roanoke Park can be our tapping code to all of the survivors out there. Okay, my second story. I don't know if any of you are watching Playbook on Netflix. If you're not, it's really good. But there's this one episode where they feature an NBA coach, Doc Rivers, and he talks about his team coming together in this South African term called Ubuntu. What Ubuntu means is it says, I am a person through other people. My humanity is tied to yours. Imagine giving survivors a place where they can find safety and be welcomed, be supported by therapists who have the special knowledge and skills to help them. You have the opportunity today to create that place and to live this concept of Ubuntu. I'm a person through other people, and my humanity is tied to yours. Okay, those are my two gifts. So now I have two asks. The first is simply to donate. You might have come today with a specific number in mind of what you were going to give. You probably or maybe already donated. We are deeply grateful for those who have. My ask is that if you are inspired by the stories you heard today, consider doubling that donation. Have an even bigger impact on people's lives. My second ask is also simple. Talk about what you saw today. Share what you heard. If someone says, how was your week? You say, well, I attended this really cool event with Roanoke Park Counseling and I learned a lot. I'll tell you, this is my little freebie third story. You don't even get charged for this one. I made this same ask last year, and a very dear friend of mine, I think she's watching today, she texted me afterwards and she said, I did it, I did your asks. She very kindly doubled her donation, but she, on her Lyft ride home, the driver said, where'd you go? And she said, I was at this really cool event with Roanoke Park Counseling. And through their conversation, it turns out that he is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, and he asked her, where can I find help? So tell someone. You're going to see on your screen some instructions on how to donate. I love giving instructions, just ask my husband. And I know some of you have already donated in advance. Thank you. Your support means so much. We also understand the realities that we are going through a pandemic, and it is impacting so many of us financially, so we are extra grateful for anything you can share. The text to donate instructions should be on your screen. You also have the option, if you scroll down to the bottom of the video in the description, there is a link. You can donate online using that link within the screen. And of course, you can also always mail a check to Roanoke Park. We are based in Seattle, and the address is on your screen now, or you can find it on our website. While you're looking at these donation options, you do also have the option to join our Circle of Hope, and that is a monthly recurring gift. When you give monthly, you are walking in the shoes of a survivor. You are with them every month as they go through the courageous and persistently hard work of healing. However you choose to give, I would just say, know that your gift is serving as that tap code. It is expressing Ubuntu. Again, please feel free to use the chat feature in Vimeo. You can communicate with us, ask questions, share comments. We're very excited to see the donations coming in. We've already had a number come in so far. We've had 13 new donors since this has started, and we've raised over $3,000 just in the last, I don't know, 50 minutes or so. We are incredibly grateful for those donations. Through these donations, you are really having the chance to ensure that Roanoke Park continues to be this very special place, a beacon of hope where survivors can find the kind of help that is supporting their journey of healing. You are giving every survivor who reaches out this ability to access these important tools with your gift. And your donation really makes a meaningful impact in people's lives. People like Ksenia, like Nadia, like me, you are having a direct impact on our lives and that inspiring act of healing. We just got an incredibly generous donation from an anonymous donor of $10,000. That has blown us past our goal. I might be a little emotional about that. That is incredibly generous. You can see the total updating on your screen now. Thank you so much to all of you who have made this possible. We might lose our mind if we get to 25,000, so don't stop donating. You can keep going. You will maybe hear us celebrating all the way over here in Seattle. So thank you again, and I'm going to return us back to Janice for her closing statement.
Thank you, Paige, and thank you to all of you who have stayed with us for this time. I think that you now have evidence of what I was talking about at the beginning of this program. This is what it looks like. This is the strength and the resilience of the human spirit, and I think that's a message we all need right now. Please have no doubt that whatever you are able to contribute, donate, you're making a difference in someone's lives. And every day, we are here doing the work that we love doing, and you make that possible. I want to take a moment and thank everybody who participated. This is, a new adventure for us, the virtual thing, but we made it happen. And my goodness, thank you so much to Natasha Ryan. Natasha, I think, has been our MC every single year for our luncheon, and she is such a pro that we just love her. Thank you again to our sponsors, PCVA Law, Molina Healthcare, Lighthouse Coffee, Theo Chocolate, and also, especially, maybe to Beverly Boy Productions, who really made this whole thing happen. And to our team leaders and our peer-to-peer fundraisers, you guys are just awesome. And I'm getting notice that our total right now, and Paige warned you we might lose our minds, $31,512. So you guys are like blowing us away. And I mean, honestly, make a difference in the world. This is happening, a positive difference. I want to especially thank those who are joining us from far away. We feel so great that this is able to happen, even in these conditions. So that's a wonderful gift. And also, one other note, we're aware that the video of Nadia's speech cut out, and that's technology for you, right? So we will send a link to all who have registered. It will be up on our website. So you want the whole thing, please. Get a tissue and listen again to Nadia's speech. It's just amazing. So thank you so much for being here today. Please, everyone, stay safe, stay healthy, stay as sane as you can. And we truly hope to see you next year, and luckily, hopefully, in person. Thank you so very much.